One quiet morning in the California desert, NASA's most powerful listening antennas locked onto a signal from deep space so precise, so perfectly structured, that it instantly silenced the entire control room. There was no static, no background noise, just a repeating transmission, so clear and deliberate that no one in the room could explain it. Every scientist froze. Stay with me, because what followed in the next few hours would unravel one of the most puzzling and unsettling mysteries that scientists have ever faced. This wasn't just another routine space anomaly. This was something truly remarkable, and this wasn't an event happening in the distant past that we're now studying as history. No, this was unfolding right above our heads, in real time, in the quiet, dark stretches of space that lie between the planets. At this very moment, something extraordinary was occurring out there, and scientists from across the world were closely monitoring it. Many were left grappling with questions they never expected to ask. The object at the center of this strange occurrence is known as 3E Atlas, only the third confirmed interstellar object ever detected entering our solar system. But unlike the objects that came before it, this one did something no other object had ever done. It didn't just pass through our system silently, it sent a signal. And that signal was forcing scientists to re-examine long-held beliefs and assumptions about space, physics, and even the possibility of extraterrestrial intelligence. To understand where this all began, we need to go back to the early hours of October 17, 2025. That morning, NASA's Deep Space Network was running its usual monitoring operations across the California desert. These enormous antennas are some of the most sensitive instruments humans have ever created. They track spacecraft billions of miles from Earth and maintain communication with probes like Voyager as they drift through the vastness of interstellar space. But that morning, something completely unexpected occurred. The system didn't pick up random cosmic noise, nor did it detect solar interference. It wasn't even the usual background radiation from the universe's earliest moments. What the instruments detected was something far more structured, an electromagnetic pulse, repeating with mind-boggling precision. Every 47 minutes, a burst of energy came from the direction of the newly discovered interstellar object, 3E Atlas. But the truly startling detail wasn't just the repetition, it was the exact duration of each pulse, 11.3 seconds. Not 11 seconds, not 12 seconds, but precisely 11.3 seconds. At first, engineers thought there was a malfunction. They ran a series of tests, checking and rechecking their equipment across multiple systems, but each test came back with the same result. The signal was real, and then things took a turn for the even stranger. Over just 5 hours of monitoring, the signal's strength increased by over 300%. Something was happening inside that object. Something was powering up. This wasn't just a passing anomaly. This was becoming something much bigger. By this time, it was clear that this was no ordinary observation. What really struck scientists, though, was the frequency at which the signal was arriving. The transmission was coming in at exactly 1.42 gigahertz, a frequency that immediately rang a bell for radio astronomers. This particular frequency is known as the hydrogen line, the natural emission frequency of hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe. For decades, scientists have speculated that if an advanced civilization ever tried to send a message across the stars, it would choose this exact frequency. This was because hydrogen exists everywhere in the cosmos, every star, every nebula, every galaxy. If an intelligent species out there was broadcasting a message, hydrogen would be their common ground. They would recognize it instantly, and that's exactly where the signal from 3 Atlas appeared. But that wasn't all. The signal wasn't just a simple repeating pulse. Inside the 11.3-second cycle, analysts discovered smaller patterns repeating every 1.7 seconds. Within those smaller patterns, they found even faster fluctuations, almost like encoded data. It was as if the signal itself had layers, with each layer revealing more complexity. It was like opening a box to find another box inside, and then another. This discovery prompted NASA to bring together a team of experts to analyze the transmission: cryptographers, communications engineers, artificial intelligence specialists, and radio astronomers. They compared the signal to every known natural source of radio emissions: pulsars, magnetars, quasars, solar storms, plasma turbulence, and more. But the final statistical analysis stunned everyone. The probability that this signal was produced by natural astrophysical processes was less than 0.3%. In other words, there was a 99.7% chance the signal was artificial. And that was the moment when the tone inside NASA's monitoring facilities shifted from excitement to something more serious. Because if this signal was truly artificial, it raised enormous questions. Something or someone had built a transmitter capable of broadcasting across interstellar distances, and, more alarmingly, it had brought that transmitter right into our cosmic neighborhood. 3 days after this discovery, things took a turn for the even more unsettling, and the signal changed direction. But that's a story for the next part. 3 days after the first mysterious transmission was detected, the situation surrounding 3 Atlas took a dramatic turn. Until that point, the signal had behaved like a well-oiled machine, repeating every 47 minutes with almost perfect consistency. Scientists had assumed that whatever was producing this transmission was either automated or following a fixed internal cycle. But on the morning of October 20th, 2025, at precisely 9:14 UTC, something shifted. The 11.3-second burst was still there, but now the internal structure of the signal was different. Instead of the familiar repeating rhythm, the transmission contained an irregular sequence of pulses that had never been observed before. Initially, engineers assumed interference from Earth. Perhaps a satellite had crossed the antenna's line of sight, or solar activity had disturbed the data. They checked everything within minutes, but nothing explained the anomaly. The signal had genuinely changed. What made this discovery even more unsettling was the timing. Just 2 hours before the change in the transmission, a network of observatories had confirmed that 3 Atlas had slightly adjusted its trajectory. The alteration was minuscule, less than 1/100th of a degree, but it was enough to change the object's path through the solar system. Natural objects don't do that. Asteroids follow predictable, gravitationally influenced paths. Comets, yes, they sometimes release gas jets that alter their motion slightly, but these effects are chaotic and usually visible. 3 Atlas showed no such plumes or jets, yet its trajectory had shifted. When scientists compared the timing of this small but significant trajectory change with the alteration in the signal pattern, the correlation was impossible to ignore. The two events had occurred within the same 90-minute window, and this connection couldn't be brushed aside. Something was happening, and it appeared to involve both the movement of the object and its transmission. Something had altered, and it was all happening at once. The tension inside NASA's analysis rooms intensified. Teams began feeding the data into advanced pattern recognition systems, hoping to determine whether the irregular pulses contained any deeper meaning or structure. Within hours, the results shocked everyone. The new signal pattern was not random. It followed a mathematical sequence specifically built around prime numbers. In mathematics, prime numbers are universally recognized as one of the most fundamental and unique patterns. a language that any advanced civilization would almost certainly recognize. For decades, scientists studying the search for extraterrestrial intelligence had speculated that if a message from another civilization were ever received, it would likely contain prime numbers as a clear signal of artificial origin. And now, here they were, clusters of 2, 3, 5, 7, and 11, appearing in precise intervals. This wasn't just coincidence. This pattern, these numbers, were deliberate. Something was designing this signal, and that meant one thing. The transmission was not natural. But the surprises didn't end there. When analysts began visualizing the data, the signal took on another layer of complexity. By converting the pulses into a two-dimensional grid, the researchers saw something startling, a geometric pattern. Simple, but undeniably intentional. Lines, shapes, and symmetrical formations, structures that could not be easily explained by natural processes. Some of the researchers even compared the pattern to the earliest computer graphics ever produced on Earth. It was basic, but it was deliberate, and it was coming from an object that had crossed interstellar space. Within 24 hours, the discovery of this pattern spread among the scientific community. Teams from universities, private observatories, and international space agencies started analyzing the data independently. Many of them reached the same unsettling conclusion. If the signal contained encoded information, then 3 Atlas wasn't just a rogue asteroid or piece of cosmic debris. It was something else entirely, a potential messenger, something designed to send a message. And that made everything even more disconcerting. Meanwhile, telescopes tracking the object began providing clearer visual data. As 3 Atlas moved deeper into the solar system, scientists got a better look at its shape. It appeared elongated, about 2 kilometers long, with an unusually smooth surface that reflected very little sunlight. This was highly unusual. Most asteroids have irregular, rocky surfaces, but 3 Atlas looked almost polished, as though it had been deliberately smoothed. The most perplexing discovery came from thermal imaging. Despite having traveled through the cold void of interstellar space for millions of years, parts of the object were warmer than expected. Not by much, just a few degrees above background temperature, but enough to suggest internal activity. Something inside the object appeared to be generating heat. Was the signal coming from within, or was there something inside the object responsible for it? As these questions circulated, another shocking piece of data came in, making the situation even more perplexing. Scientists had calculated the exact point where 3 Atlas would make its closest approach to Earth's orbital path, March 3, 2026, less than 5 months away. And this wasn't just a routine calculation. It was now clear that the object would pass closer to Earth than anyone had originally expected. And as scientists came to this realization, one quiet but chilling thought emerged among a few analysts. What if this signal, this transmission, wasn't a random broadcast into space? What if it was meant for someone much closer? What if it was meant for us? By November 2025, the evidence surrounding 3 Atlas had grown too strange to ignore. More and more scientists were beginning to believe that this object wasn't just an ordinary piece of cosmic debris. There was something deliberate about it, something designed. As the object drew nearer to Earth's orbit, telescopes around the world began gathering more detailed information. But the more they observed, the stranger it appeared. Astronomers studying 3 Atlas noticed something even more unusual about the object's rotation. Most asteroids are irregularly shaped and tumble through space unpredictably. Their rotation is affected by gravitational forces and past collisions, but not 3 Atlas. This object rotated with remarkable stability, with a period of exactly 7 hours and 12 minutes. Even more oddly, its axis of rotation remained almost perfectly steady, pointing in the same direction as it traveled. This kind of stability is extremely rare for objects that have drifted through interstellar space for millions of years. But what truly caught the attention of scientists was the ongoing signal. It didn't just repeat, it evolved. The prime number clusters were still present, but now the sequence was expanding. New, larger clusters of primes appeared 13, 17, 19, and beyond. The pattern was changing, and this suggested something important. Whatever was producing the signal wasn't static. It was adapting. It was modifying its output in response to something that was probably related to its position in the solar system. This discovery raised an unsettling question. Why was it evolving? Why was it changing as it approached Earth's orbital region? Something was happening here, something deliberate, and that meant the signal couldn't be ignored. It wasn't random cosmic noise. It wasn't a freak occurrence. This was a planned transmission, and it was evolving, adapting to its environment. As the months rolled on, the mystery surrounding 3E Atlas continued to deepen. The object's journey through the solar system was meticulously tracked, and every new piece of data brought more complexity to the puzzle. The signal continued to evolve, becoming ever more intricate, and scientists from across the world were working tirelessly to decode it. With each new development, it became increasingly clear that this was not just an ordinary transmission from space, it was something much more. By late December 2025, the scientific community had reached a consensus. 3 Atlas was not simply a rogue asteroid or piece of space debris. It was something deliberately engineered, and it had sent a message, one that seemed to be encoded with intent. But what did it mean? Was it a message for us? And if so, what was it trying to communicate? The signal itself was continuing to evolve. The prime number clusters had expanded even further, and new patterns were emerging. The pulses now seemed to form larger repeating cycles, and the researchers began mapping these new structures to see if they could extract some kind of information. As they analyzed the signal, something surprising emerged. The intervals between the pulses appeared to form sequences that resembled the frames of a digital transmission. Some researchers proposed that the signal might represent a form of image encoding, similar to the way early spacecraft from Earth transmitted pictures line by line back to ground stations. To test this theory, engineers began reconstructing the signal as a binary grid. Each pulse was assigned a value of either 1 or 0, depending on its intensity. What they discovered was astonishing. The reconstructed pattern revealed something: geometric lines, angles, and symmetrical structures. The shapes were too orderly, too deliberate, to be the product of a natural phenomenon. These patterns were intentionally created. As these findings began to spread within the scientific community, the implications grew clearer. The signal wasn't just a random collection of pulses. It contained something far more structured. It appeared to be a message encoded in a language that was universal. For decades, scientists had speculated that if extraterrestrial intelligence existed, they would most likely use a recognizable mathematical pattern, such as prime numbers or binary encoding, to communicate with us. And now they had the evidence. Despite the mounting evidence, however, the scientific community was hesitant to make any public proclamations. Most of the data still came from distant observations, and the object was too far away for definitive conclusions. But with each passing day, as 3 Atlas drew nearer, the clarity of the data improved, and the more scientists observed, the stranger the object seemed. One of the most puzzling discoveries came from high-resolution imaging. As telescopes focused on 3 Atlas, it became clear that its surface was unlike that of typical asteroids. Instead of a rough, irregular surface, The object appeared elongated, with a smooth, polished texture. There were no visible impact craters, no signs of the usual space debris that clings to asteroids. This smoothness was baffling. Objects traveling through interstellar space for millions of years are usually battered by countless collisions with other debris, but 3 Atlas showed no signs of that. Thermal imaging added yet another layer of intrigue. Despite its long journey through the cold vacuum of space, parts of the object were warmer than expected, not by much, only a few degrees above the background temperature, but it was enough to suggest internal activity. Was this warmth being generated by something inside the object, or was the object itself somehow producing it? The more scientists analyzed 3 Atlas, the more it appeared to be something far beyond a typical asteroid. It was behaving in ways that suggested design, not randomness. But what was its purpose? Was it simply a cosmic traveler, or was it something more? And if it was a message, what was the message? The questions were multiplying, and the answers were nowhere to be found. The real kicker came when astronomers realized the object was heading toward Earth. Its closest approach was now just months away. The object was on a path that would bring it dangerously close to Earth's orbital region, and scientists were now frantically trying to gather as much data as possible before it passed. And as they did, one unsettling thought began to creep into their minds. What if the transmission wasn't meant for deep space? What if it was meant for us? As January 2026 dawned, the object's trajectory became even more crucial. The signal was still evolving, becoming more complex with every passing day. 3 Atlas was no longer just an astronomical curiosity. It had become something much more. It was drawing closer, and every new discovery made scientists wonder more and more whether it was trying to communicate with us. The object's surface remained as strange as ever. It wasn't just smooth, it appeared almost metallic, as though it had been designed and polished for a purpose. What kind of object could travel across interstellar space, yet maintain such an intact, perfect surface? No natural asteroid could do that. It seemed that 3 Atlas was not only unusual in shape, but in composition too. And with every new piece of data, the idea that this was a piece of artificial technology became harder to dismiss. Astronomers continued to track the object, now more focused on its upcoming approach to Earth's orbital region. The date was set, March 3, 2026. Less than 5 months away, the object was getting closer, and every passing week brought more startling revelations. The most baffling of these was the discovery that the signal had shifted again. Instead of repeating every 47 minutes, the transmission now arrived every 32 minutes. The scientists could not explain this change. It didn't fit any natural model. The object's movement and the signal shifts seemed deliberate, calculated, and then there was the way the signal was evolving. The prime number clusters continued, but now they were expanding. Larger sequences were appearing, stretching into higher values, 13, 17, 19. This wasn't just random, this was purposeful, adapting. The signal was evolving as the object neared Earth, and this only added to the growing sense of urgency. In early February 2026, the question that had quietly lingered for months was now being discussed openly. Could this signal, this transmission, be the result of an advanced extraterrestrial intelligence? Could it be a message for us? A transmission from another civilization reaching out across the stars? The more scientists investigated, the more they became convinced. Something was happening here. The signal was not natural, it was not random, it had a structure, and it was evolving. It was a message, and as it grew clearer, it became more and more likely that the message was directed at us. As March 3rd approached, the anticipation was palpable. The object was only a few months away from passing through Earth's orbital region, and the world's telescopes were trained on it, waiting for the next breakthrough. The data was piling up, and the questions were multiplying. Was this the evidence of an intelligence beyond our planet? And if so, what did that mean for humanity? By the time March 2026 arrived, the world was on edge. 3 Atlas was now within a few weeks of its closest approach to Earth's orbit, and the data coming in was more bizarre by the day. As the object neared, scientists became more convinced than ever that this was no ordinary space debris. The signal was still evolving, still changing with each new observation, and every new piece of data seemed to point to one conclusion: 3 Atlas was artificial. And that meant it wasn't just an object from another star system. It could be a message designed to communicate with us. What was the message? No one knew for sure, but one thing was clear: this was forcing humanity to confront a possibility that had once belonged only in the realm of science fiction. Could it be that we were not alone in the universe? Could this be the first solid evidence that intelligent life exists beyond Earth? The closer 3A Atlas got, the more urgent the search for answers became. The signal continued to evolve, showing more complexity, more structure. The message was getting clearer, and the object's journey through the solar system was bringing it closer to Earth, as if it were intentionally guiding itself toward us. As scientists prepared for the object's closest approach, one thought haunted them. Was this the moment when humanity would have to face the truth? That somewhere out there, across the vast expanse of space, there might be a civilization that has been watching us all along? The countdown was on, and humanity was on the verge of discovering the truth. Were we alone in the universe, or had we just made contact with an intelligence from beyond the stars? The story of 3 Atlas is still unfolding, and you don't want to miss what happens next. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and stay tuned for the next chapter in this incredible cosmic mystery.